right, days away. Days away from, what am I days away from? Just a few more days, and I will be with the wildlife biologist for a few days. That'll be very interesting. So that'll be one of the first videos you see with somebody with me having a conversation, a few people. But before that, I have a time set up, made contact with our lovely First Nations ladies who contacted me. Absolutely can't wait to get them here and have a great conversation with them and get a bunch of my questions answered for me. What else? I may have another person as well who's had numerous experiences have a good conversation with me and describe in intimate detail exactly what has gone down, what happened, where, what it felt like, and how it's affected their life. But more importantly, what I think is I shouldn't say more importantly than that. I'm not saying that, but right now I cannot wait to speak with the ladies. I spoke on the phone last evening, and I have a feeling I'm going to learn a lot for me, and we'll share these conversations with all of you, and you can take from what you will or leave it. But for me, my stance is I get to sit and listen to the people that we all should have been listening to from day one. So that's why I'm excited about that. Anyway, I'm not quite awake yet. Got a little bucket of go juice here. Farm life, I'll tell you what, the morning's burning. Everybody's fed. And I'm getting ready to rip. But one of the priorities of my day is doing this when I can. So here we go. Listen to this. This title, he was looking in the window at me. It was 1977, around 1 or 2 a.m., Concord, North Carolina. No shortage in North Carolina, is there? I was 15, living with my boyfriend. We did marry, but it ended after 23 days. We were doing what teenagers do, and he was hungry after that go-around. I went to the kitchen to make him a sandwich. I could feel something watching me, but I was too scared to look. I made the sandwich, put it on my plate, and as I turned to take it to my boyfriend, I seen it. The trailer we lived in didn't have steps. I'm 5 feet tall and had to put my hands inside the door and jump. The door had a diamond-shaped glass in it, and its reddish hair and face was covering the glass in the door. I screamed and threw the plate and hid myself. My 6'2" bodybuilder boyfriend came sliding on his stomach into the kitchen. I told him what I'd seen. We heard all the dogs in the park going off. The Bigfoot I'd seen had to be 9 or 10 feet tall to be able to put its face in that window. For the next 16 to 17 years after that, I had nightmares every night until I dreamed he was my friend. No more dreams. I hope this helps someone. Thanks for all you do and for all who send in their stories. Have more, but we'll share later. God bless you all, and all you are doing to get God bless you all and all you're doing to get the truth out, as well as all who share. Stay safe and keep hunting. Trina D. Okay, Trina, thanks for that. I haven't experienced that. I've experienced the cabin getting beat on, but I haven't experienced somebody's face in the window yet. Many have. Many have, and that's interesting that you may possibly got across that it's a friend and not foe. And just as a side note, one of the ladies I spoke to last night, First Nations ladies, basically had an entire lifetime experiences, with these beings. She said flat out that they were never ever taught that these beings were ferocious or angry or evil in any way, ever. They were never taught that. But she did hint to that there is other things going on out into the woods, and she'll share that with us shortly. But take note of that. And yeah, I'll save all that for later. My feelings and thoughts on that later. Now, sorry for that. Thanks again for that share. I'm a little all over the map this morning. A little more go juice to get my brain straightened out. Now, listen to this. Sasquatch family and the old log scaling station. Hi Steve, this happened to me in 2004, southeast out of Estacada, Oregon. Estacada or Estacada? Years ago, I had a friend that was a disabled Vietnam veteran, and he needed help in going to the VA hospital in Portland, Oregon. I'm also a Vietnam veteran, 70-71, but was not in the same branch of service as my friend. He's in the Marines and had been wounded up near the DMZ in the late 1960s. He was hit by a grenade, and due to the nature of some of the shrapnel, pieces were still in his body. They could not get it all out. We live in Central Oregon, so to get to the VA hospital, I would sometimes drive it. On a couple of trips, we would talk about some of the Sasquatch activity I'd seen in the woods. One of the areas where I'd seen a fair amount of sign was southeast of and outside of Estacada, Oregon. We'd gone to the VA hospital, spent most of the day there, and we're on our way back over the Cascade Mountains when my friend said that he wanted to see the log scaling station where I'd spent some time years ago looking around. There I had once found a dead deer hanging off a branch of a tree 20 feet up in the air. There was still a fair amount of daylight left, and the access to the log scaling location was fairly easy. It was a number of years prior to that in the mid-1990s had been in that area hunting deer and had come across a 19-inch right foot impression in the mud on an old Forest Service skid road. It was a 5-toed track in the mud on an old skid road just to the west of the log scaling station and pressed 2 inches into the mud. The toes and heel were very clear. My friend wanted to see that area. I was driving that day, so we took a side road to go to Estacada. After going through town, we took a main road going south over the Clackamas River and headed south on the main highway. We turned east on a small road, then went through the small little community of Dodge, Oregon. Beyond that, a mile or so, was the old unused log scaling station. The road did a few turns here and there, and most of the way was by places that had small fields of strawberries and fir trees planted. The log scaling station was just ahead on our left, north side. We pulled off, and the place was just covered with blackberry plants, and the understory around the station was thick. I shut everything off, rolled down the window, and told my friend that we should just wait a few minutes and just listen. We heard nothing out of just birds singing. We got out and I proceeded to show my friend some of the deer bones that had been piled up on one end of the scaling station, but back in the woods 50 yards. They were still there after many years of exposure. What was interesting about the deer bones was all of them had been sorted into some piles. Same type bone, same pile, different bone, different pile. We looked around at a couple more spots there and then noticed a small overgrown skid road on the east end of the old station. We walked over to it, looked at it, and then asked me where it went. I said it only goes in 300 feet and stops, and my guess was that it had been used to park various rigs off to the side when the station was in use. I had no background or history about that station, so I didn't know when it had or had not been used. We decided to go in. For the first 50 feet or so, you could see around you okay. You could see around you okay. After that, it was overgrown. You could see almost nothing but the little skid road we were on. In another 50 feet, we came across a series of 5 or 6 alder trees at 8 feet tall. They were 3 inches in diameter. They had been pulled out of the ground and laid across the skid road. All these trees were oriented the same way. 12-inch diameter root wads were exposed, green leaves still on the trees. We walked over and around these and then another 100 feet to just about where the old skid road stopped. We stood there looking around. We did notice 2 things that were not normal. On the northwest side, there was a large rock 3 feet in diameter covered with moss that was laying on its side with the bottom exposed. It was leaning up against a small yew tree, and the bottom of the rock was bare. I'd guess that rock weighed well over 100 pounds. Rocks here and there are not a big concern, but when a creek rock ends up 500 to 600 yards from a known creek bottom, you have to wonder. Next to the rock and slightly above to its left was a small vine maple tree. One of its bottom branches had been twisted around into a complete circle. The size of the vine maple opening was 1 foot. All behind that tree was nothing but heavy berry bushes. I bent down to look at the circle and then asked my friend to take some pictures, as I'd seen this kind of activity before, not too far away. After he took his pictures, I bent down again and was looking through the opening, and I saw a pair of eyes, 3 feet in, looking right back at me. The face was that of a small childlike creature with lots of reddish brown black hair. Its head was pointed on top. It looked at me, then looked back over its left shoulder, then looked back at me again. I looked where it was looking, and there sat another one about the same size right next to it. What was interesting about that was the second one was itself holding an even smaller one in its arms. I stood up, told my friend, and then he looked and he saw them too. We stepped back, not talking or making any noise, and then the very large adult showed itself to us. It was all black, hairy, and had dark, round pupils. The part of our eyes that are white, its were red. It was half upright, half down on its feet. It had its mouth open like it was not pleased that we were there, and I could see its teeth very well. They were all white and very squarish in shape. Its canine teeth were a little bit longer, but flat on top. There were no pointed teeth that I saw. Its arms were spread open, I'd guess at about 8 feet, and each hand had hold of a branch of a tree. My guess, it was looking at us, just sitting up on its butt, but its head was above all the berry bushes, and my guess, while it was sitting there, it was still 5 feet tall. We're standing 10 feet away or less from these creatures. Oh my God. And neither of us felt afraid. I looked at its eyes again, and from either side of the edges of its eyes, you could see where the membranes on the eyes that came, you could see where there were membranes on the eyes that came in. These were not eyelids. They were between the eyes and the eyelid. They were red also. My guess with the membrane in its eyes is they pull those in during daylight to protect their eyes. I'm not a biologist, but I've never seen any creature that had that membrane in its eyes. The hair on top of its head was pointed. Oh, hear that? The hair on top of its head was pointed. Its skin was gray, black color with no hair that I could see on its face or the bottom of its hands. Its lips were narrow / thin, and its nose was not flat nor very wide, but a little wider than ours and shaped the same. Its ears looked to be about the same size as ours, but were set a little higher on its head than ours, or maybe it looked that way due to the size of its massive jaw. Its hands were large, and my estimate was they looked to be twice the size of our hands or more. Neither of us felt threatened. We must have stood there for at least 2 or more minutes, staring at each other. Holy crap, 2 or more minutes at 10 feet or less in the wilds with anything is like 2 lifetimes in time. Now I totally understand why it's so detailed still in your head. This whole thing is absolutely tattooed in your brain, without a doubt. Right down to every hair, I guess. Sorry for interrupting. Sorry. We could hear other noises coming from the woods around us. So without talking or making any noise, we both turned and slowly walked out the old skid road, climbing over the stacked up trees and back. Oh, you had to climb over the stacked up trees. That must have been a lot of them. And back to the truck. We didn't talk until we were back inside the truck. My friend then asked me just what it was that we saw. I said, I think we just encountered a Sasquatch family. We watched the woods a little more, saw no movement, and then decided to leave. My friend is now since gone, I've been back to that location at least a couple more times over the years, but the logging company that owned that land had sold it. The new company that bought that patch of ground has gone in and logged it all off. They even got back on the Forest Service road that ran next to that plot on the west side and destroyed the little footbridge that went over a small creek. The logging company also made a very deep cut into the bottom of that creek. It's so deep and long that you can't even get around it by walking, and you certainly cannot drive a vehicle in there either. This is my first and only encounter that close to a family of Sasquatches. Additional later visits showed no sign that they are still in the area. The old log scaling station is still there, but it's all been blocked off from access by large concrete blocks and signs that have been put up that says keep out. The Forest Service road is still there, and in 2015 I was over in that area again on business. I walked in on that Forest Service road to the west from where I'd seen the family group. After 500 yards north from where I parked, on the east side of the forest road, there was still some large and tall Douglas firs left standing. On a slight uphill dirt bank on the east side of the skid road, I found a small vine maple that had one of its lower branches twisted into a circle. This would make the third one like this I'd seen in the same area. At that point, I felt better as I knew they were still there. Everything I've written, I can back up with field notes, etc. Please, please do not give my name out or any contact information. I'm 73 years old, retired, and just want to be left alone. Thank you. Wow. What an experience. Holy shit. What a frickin' experience. And they let you walk right in there. I wonder if they stacked up that stack of alders, freshly pulled up alders, when they knew you were going to come down that road. Sounds like it, right? Not a first either. Not a first. It's interesting you said the hair was pointed. You know when most people describe as the head was pointed? You said it was the hair. Maybe it's possibly just like a cowlick that we humans get in your hair pattern. Maybe it's a popular pattern that makes their head look pointed. Who knows? I don't know. What an incredible share. Thank you so much for sending that in. And again, if you got anything else you want to share, get it in. Don't hold back anything. It's titled Life, etc. Hey Steve, I've never emailed you before, but I watch intently. My name is Dimitri Gilbert. I have this strong feeling we've met before. I've lived up and down the island all my life. I also grew up in Duncan and Victoria and have an older bro Nick and younger Misha. Anyway, 2008 I was going through a custody case, and every weekend I was going to Port Renfrew and camping my Pathfinder by myself fishing on the river there. Jordan River, I think. You know, Jordan River is quite a bit before Port Renfrew, as you know. One day there I heard a voice say to me, I'm hungry. I thought I was effing losing it from all the stress I was going through. So the next weekend I heard the same thing. After a week of thinking about it, I thought it might be a Sabbath because I always believed, and the voice was so clear and loud in my head. So this day I said, why do you come and talk to me? Just don't scare me, please. The rest of the day I kept repeating myself, nothing. So now I was sure I was losing it. So that night I had a couple of beers and went to sleep in my car. 3:30 a.m. I get woken by a voice saying, I'm here. I'm startled awake and say, the F. I look around my car because it was so clear. Nothing. So I say back thinking it was a dream or something, and then I hear I'm outside. I opened my eyes slowly and got really up and scared because I realized what was going on, and it was a Sabbath outside of my vehicle. Now all I can think is, you idiot, what were you thinking? So I said, please don't scare me. I said, I'm outside. I look around and don't see anything and said, I'm getting out. Please don't scare me. I'm not sure what to expect. So I open the door and the door bumps something as I'm getting out, and I realize that I parked on rocks and there's no trees or bush. My heart sinks because I don't know what to expect. I say, is that you just, I say, is, a couple typos. I say, is that you I just hit? Then I feel an effing gigantic hand on my shoulder and drop to my knees thinking nobody knows I'm here. And remember, I didn't think any of this would happen at first when I heard I'm hungry. I never imagined this would happen. I believed, but I didn't believe. Sorry, I digress. Anyway, it F's me up and says hi in a goofy way, so it makes me feel better, and I say, let's go sit down by the back. I open my tailgate, and the light goes on, and this thing is at least 10 feet tall, 800 to 900 pounds, and sits on the ground. And I sit on my tailgate, and I'm looking up at him. I'll write another email to you. This is getting long, and I have MS, so it's hard to concentrate. Thank you for all you do, Steve. You're a good soul. Don't ever let anyone detour you. Godspeed. Well, isn't that just a bit of a tease for all who want to hear more from that one? I don't think I've ever heard anything. I don't think I've heard anything similar to that. Saying hello and come and sit down, and they sit down across from you, and you're looking up at it. The size description is definitely familiar, but this is sounding like one hell of a story. I don't know why you wouldn't have finished it, but you want to send the rest in, send the rest in. That was May 17th, 2022, the original. That sounds like a holy shit story. There's no shortage. All right, here comes another one. Hopefully we'll hear the rest of that story, right? One day. Yet another window peeking at a kid. Sabe story. Dear Steve, thanks for your channel. It's really helped fill my puzzle piece into what happened to my sister and me in the mid-60s when we were children in southeast Michigan. You know, that part of the US where Canada is still south of us. I realize my story is not unique, and to me, that is the worst part, since these terrifying encounters have been going on a long time. We moved into a new subdivision, which had previously been wild areas and was at that time surrounded by farms. Their surrounding land had nice apple trees, a pond, and lots of natural areas. Gosh, I enjoyed being a kid in the 60s, playing in those fields, climbing those apple trees, but I digress. After a while, my sister kept insisting something was looking at her in the window at night. She was terrified. I mean, inconsolable fear. She tried to describe it, and my mom said someone must have been wearing a gorilla mask and pranking her. We weren't even 10 years old, and the window was about 7 feet above the ground. She said it was not a gorilla, like a mask, but gorilla-like and super ugly and not wearing a mask. Each night she felt total terror going to bed because of this thing looking in the window. It didn't come every night, but come enough that my sister was to the point she couldn't function as a normal child. Oh, that sucks. She lived in a state of panic when nighttime came. We shared a room, and she begged me to switch bunk beds with her. She was top bunk, and it was right next to the window, and I did. After we switched beds, it stopped coming, but this terror impacted her for her entire life in many ways, without a doubt. Of course, we didn't understand what she was going through, and we teased her. I had no idea about the Sabe. Thank you, government, for that. Or that the Sabe liked to peek in the windows of children. Now that I have figured out what it was, thanks to your channel, it really speaks to a lot of the weird things that were going on at that time. Example, we found a very large dugout area, like a hidden giant nest, large enough for a few men to lay down in, and the creepy feelings we often got while tramping through the fields. Heck, we played in that nest, marveling over how nice it was. I know I'm repeating, but this experience really defined her. She never got over it. It never occurred to me it could be a Bigfoot until hearing of other experiences on your channel. I sure wish my sister was still alive so I could finally tell her what it was. Anyway, I know my story is not unique, but I write so you know that your channel is helping many folks finally get answers, some decades old. It disgusts me that the lives of our children are not valued by our government, exemplified by the secrets they keep. My very best to your family, and you know you're making a difference. Patty Urban. P.S. What the heck is going on in Canada? Too much. All right, Patty, appreciate it, and that is really, really shitty that happened to your sister and affected her life, her whole life in a negative way, right? blaming it on the government. I've said it before, I have zero respect for our current government, the system, what they've got in place and what it does to everybody. I can only imagine how low a quality life is about to be being dumped upon the future generations right now. It's a real sad state of affairs, but as long as we all keep looking to each other for answers and honesty and knowledge like we are, then we'll get back on track, right? We all have to start reversing what's been hammered into us, is looking to government for the answers, which is it isn't more of a wrong thing to do. It's so wrong. All you have to do to see how absurd that is, just pick out any politician, I don't care where, Canada, US, Britain, one of the worst places in the world for politics. Pick out any one of them. Look into that individual and then ask yourself why you would even dream for 1 second to expect to look to that person for an answer to anything, right? And then times that by every person that's in politics. Doesn't make sense. They're all a bunch of deranged shitbags, every one of them. So, kick them to the curb, kick them to the side, and we all focus on each other. You kick them to the curb, right? We feed off and give each other the strength, the energy, and we keep building it, and we keep answering questions, and then we get more powerful, right? More in control of our own lives. And we make our decisions for us, right? Babbling. I gotta stop myself, I'll tell you what. More goat juice, the little shittens are in here, the horses are right around the corner. Alright, here comes the chicken gangster. Alright, what's this one? One more, and I get going, I got a lot to do. Last year in May 2021, on the evening of the 14th, about supper time, a little boy, my distant cousin's 8-year-old boy, who is also autistic, went missing from his yard. The fire hall alarm hadn't been sounded until around 8:30 p.m. or so, a few hours after he initially went missing, and just an hour before it got dark, There were numerous searches both inside the community and all along the bushes outside the ring dike up and down the riverside. The search and rescue teams arrived after dark and joined in with everyone possible from the community. They had flashlights. They used 2 drones that had infrared capability, and I was spotlighting from on top of the ring dike all night so as to help the searchers down below to not feel alone, even though there were many. They looked like fireflies in the bush. That's how I can best describe it. They searched all night and found nothing. At first light, after everyone went up south to the command post at the fire hall, I went into the bush straight behind my house over the ring dike. I went straight to the river bank to look for signs of tracks. I found 2 right away. One was about the size of my shoe, and I wear size 12 men's. The other was about my baby son's shoe size, and he's only 6 at the time, and wore size 12 toddler/youth. They were bare footprints, no socks, no shoes, 5 toes, flat feet, and I didn't notice if there was a mid-tarsal break. I saw across the river a man and a search dog. In the sky was a search plane. I was alone at the time. Down along the riverbank in front of me was a disturbed area at the water's edge. But the tracks were messed up from a beaver that had just been... Alright, I gotta get rid of this chicken. Frickin' chickens. I'm gonna fence all the little bastards in here pretty quick. Sarah's finally agreed that it's the right thing to do. Sorry. I was alone at the time. Down along the riverbank in front of me was a disturbed area at the water's edge, but the tracks were messed up from a beaver that had just been there and was now splashing around in the Red River. I took a video and some pictures. Then I headed back uphill to my house to get my 13-year-old son to come with me to the spot where the little boy went missing further south along the riverbank. We took the ring dike halfway and headed downhill to the riverside. We captured some of the search party. I was talking to my son about how I wanted to go start tracking from the first place by the river where our little relative first left a footprint. The missing boy's father was there, halfway between where I first saw a track and where the boy left his first print. The boy's father heard me relaying my plan and he followed us south along the river. I matched up that first footprint to the one I came across earlier when I was alone. I said to my son, "Okay, now we head back the way we came and keep an eye out for any track you see." We came across a shirt, but it wasn't the missing boy's shirt. We'd gone almost 13 hours overnight and it was cold that night, and all he was reported to be wearing was a pamper and a t-shirt. My son and I tracked him here and there sporadically along the riverbank north and sometimes uphill a bit into the bushes. There were 3 sets of different sized prints besides the boy's. There was a little footprint, a little bigger than his, at a few points. There was the bigger print about my size, and then we came across the huge print. It had been stepped across by one of the searchers who I knew to be wearing cowboy boots, and he was there again in the morning searching from the previous night. I showed my son and I took a picture of it. We continued on until we came up to the point. It's actually called that too by us locals, the point, where the Red and the Rosau rivers meet, sorry. Then we followed the tracks along the Rosau River bank east until we got to the spot where we had last found a small bare footprint. It has to be the missing boys. I took another picture. I took quite a few actually as we went along. But I was continually answering my own son's questions about how I found the trackway and what to look for. It took us roughly 25 minutes from start to finish, going at a real good pace because I knew the searchers were going to resume looking again, and they had already disturbed the trackway the previous night in the darkness. There's 1,000 shoe prints everywhere, making it difficult to find a continuous track. But I have a good eye, and I had a feeling that we were on the same path these 3 footprints took the previous evening. I think they were carrying the little boy most of the way, and also the other little footprint maker. I'm not certain how they got across the river. I hadn't seen any disturbance on the other side of the riverbank anywhere. And this is where our search ended, and we went home as I was up all night and I wanted to get some rest before trying to get across the river to try to find the trackway on that side. I fell asleep, but not before checking the Facebook updates about the search. I read that around 10 a.m. they're going to call everyone back and let everyone know it was going to be turned over to the professionals, and they were saying it would be a recovery mission. I woke up later that afternoon around 2 p.m. or so, and I was relieved to know that the little guy was found by 2 men in a boat a few miles upriver along the eastern side of the bank, hiding in the bushes. In all, the little boy covered 5 miles overnight, barely dressed for the elements, and he was cold but made it out okay. On top of that, he somehow got across the river and through some pretty rough terrain. Sadly, I have to tell you that I deleted all my pictures from that morning due to me sharing them in a Facebook group I was in at the time. I was getting all kinds of questions and requests for more details, and I was afraid the Bigfoot hunters would come to our community and try to harm them. This is my story, and I believe that is what happened to my little relative. I will attach some pictures of the areas with descriptions of the events. What do we got here now? Oh, we got some pictures and some more emails. He sent me a first email first. Okay, I'll read what was attached to this. Sorry, you guys. Because there's another email, I think. It says, "Good day, Steve. My name is Jamie, and I'm in Ojibwe from Manitoba. I've been a follower since I came across your hunting videos when the pandemic started. I was interested in learning more about how to hunt and watching you do your thing. Then you started the Bigfoot videos. I was very intrigued by that, and I watch every day now. My 9-year-old daughter watches with me too. We love your channel." So I'll attach my story to this email and a few pictures to help with the whole event from that day last year. Sorry I didn't type. You didn't hear, but I'm not very technical. Hope you find it a good read and not get angry how I present it to you. Stay safe and give Darla a shout out. Feel free to share it with Dave Plattis if you want. Continue your puzzle searches. I will, as will I. Now, hold on a second. The riverbank straight down the hill from a place where I first went to Sunrise. There was some footprints here, but a beaver had been messing up the bank moments earlier. Okay, so this is connected. The location he was found. All right, gotcha. Wow. Where was this? I thought this is in States. Okay, I got you, man. I got the photos. It all makes sense to me now. And that's one hell of a story. Pretty incredible. And he got across the river, right? I'm surprised they didn't return them themselves. I don't know what was going on there. It's kind of scary for parents, right? Kind of scary for parents to thank God you got that child back. And do I think this is related to what Dave Plattis investigates? Not really. I don't think so. Not me. I think something a little more sinister is going on when it comes to what Dave Plattis is investigating currently. A little more sinister than our hairy, wild bush people. That's what I'm thinking. But hopefully it all comes out eventually. We'll see. There's a lot of people who are relentlessly looking into everything, right? All right. I gotta get my day going. Gotta get my day going, gotta get things done, and I gotta get prepped for my anticipated guests who will be here. Can't wait. And keep emailing in all the knowledge you guys got, especially if it's gonna help people, all right? Keep emailing it in. I'll be back shortly.